Until next time,
Happy gaming!
Well, if Team Cherry won't talk about Silksong, I will. It has been 2.5 years since we first found out about Hollow Knight Silksong. To remind us a bit about what was going on back in 2019, Pokemon Sword and Shield released, we all crowded into cinemas to see Endgame, and an egg took #1 spot for most liked Instagram post in the world. Speaking of what happened with that, oh, I guess they post cringe #relatable inspirational memes. Let's pull this back on topic. In the past 2.5 years, we have not gotten Silksong. However, we have gotten a grand total of 3 updates, this detail video, an E3 demo, some riddles, and an interview from Edge magazine. I think that's all the major stuff. That isn't a whole lot in 2.5 years of development. And this lack of information from Team Cherry has aggravated a decent chunk of the community, and it's fair. A lot of game devs nowadays give out fairly regular updates on how the project's going. It's a great way to build hype around the game and keep your fans in the loop. But here's the thing. Silksong is already massively hyped up due to the success of Hollow Knight. Plus, Ari and Will have made it pretty obvious they want to keep the vast majority of the game veiled till launch, so we can explore, wonder, and discover all the little and large secrets they've hidden in this beautiful world they and Jack have made. Also, you'd be surprised at how much effort and time it takes to make these updates. I have my foot in quite a few small indie game circles, and sometimes developers prefer to use the time they'd spend writing an update simply working on the game instead. So as disappointed as the fans of the series may be, making updates for Silksong just doesn't really help Team Cherry in any way. Alright, next I want to talk about how long development is taking. The base game of Hollow Knight went live on Kickstarter way back in 2014 and took about 3 years to be released, with its 4 DLCs being popped out over the next 1.5 years. I'm guessing most of you already know, but Silksong was originally going to be yet another DLC for Hollow Knight, so its development started pretty much straight after its release back in 2017. It's already been about 4.5 years since Team Cherry got started on Silksong. However, we need to remember that because of it originally being DLC, it would have been a much smaller project, and it would have been produced simultaneously to Hidden Dreams, The Grim Troop, Lifeblood, and Godmaster. With the final DLC releasing to the public in late August 2018, Silksong has only had 3 years of full attention. So Silksong should almost be done, yeah? The original Hollow Knight took 3 years to develop, surely Silksong will take a similar time frame. Well, not necessarily. While Hollow Knight had its fair share in bugs, as well as Team Cherry learning a completely new engine to make the game in, Silksong's world had to be completely changed due to Hornet's speed and height a full 1.5 years into development. This game is also going to be massive. When we got the trailer for Silksong 2.5 years back, the game already had over 150 enemies. That's more than Hollow Knight. And Team Cherry isn't stopping. Gibson and Pellin have always let themselves be naturally guided by the worlds they build, almost discovering them as they go. As we have discussed in Edge before, their preferred method of development is a kind of controlled scope creep, with new areas and concepts unfurling out of the others to create a place that feels as if it's grown organically. Controlled scope creep. For those who are unaware of what scope creep is, frequent and uncontrolled changes in the scope or requirements of a project. Basically, in a game developer's situation, scope creep is where the game slowly gets bigger and bigger because the devs are like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to add such and what if we implement this? Now, scope creep can be a very scary thing for a lot of devs, as it can lead to the death of a game simply because it got too ambitious for the creators to keep up with. Team Cherry seems pretty confident they've got this under control though, so let's hope and pray they do. On top of all this, there's one huge thing that I and many others haven't even mentioned yet: the lore. Team Cherry went into Hollow Knight with very little aim. They knew they wanted seals on a big boss that you have to break to get through, and something about an infection. That was about it. And yes, I know they spoke briefly about a lore book in this interview.
Everything's like set in stone.
We've got an extensive lore document back at the office.
But I'm sure this is, at least in part, a joke. It directly goes against what they say about building the world as though they were discovering it for themselves for the first time.
We have our own sort of theories, and perhaps in some of those, William and I
You have your own theories about your own game.
We can disagree on stuff as well.
I actually also think that point of exploring the narrative goes into the way we built the game, which is that the game, building the game is actually just like being pioneers in this world, and it works perfectly because it's like a cave system, and you're basically, as you're building these new areas, you're just digging into these new caves and finding out for the first time what is actually in there. A lot of the world was built from us saying, oh, I got to the end of this pathway, but what could be beyond this path, and then finding out as you travel.
I would bet that Team Cherry is dedicating a lot of time filling out and connecting the story. There are so many unanswered questions about the first Hollow Knight game. What's Lifeblood? What happened to the ancient civilization? Why do Mado and Ora have beef? Does beef exist in this world? Who's this dude? Who's this dude? Who's this dude? While we won't get an answer to all our questions, I'm certain we will get some history, as the Weavers appear to play a substantial role in both Hallownest and Farloom. In a Reddit AMA, Ari said this: all endings are equally canon. We're not into true endings. You can choose the path yourself. We'll do our best in all future Hollow Knight content to account for them all. Just figuring out how to keep all of Hollow Knight's endings canon is going to be a huge job. I mean, Hornet pretty much dies in the Sealed Siblings ending. I'm going to ramble about a theory which has next to no proof for a second, so just bear with me. What if one of the main contributors to Silksong's long arrival is that Team Cherry are/were creating that previously mentioned lore book?
We've got an extensive lore document back at the office.
It is my belief that Team Cherry will have woven a beautifully interconnected story between Hallownest, Farloom, and maybe even more by the end of the development. Of course, I hardly expect that they'll tell us everything. We'll still have many an enigma ready to be theorised on by the end of Silksong. The world of Hollow Knight is just so rich and full of mystery waiting to be scraped away at. Heck, I'm half expecting these boys to drop a full-on novel or something at one point or another. That's all just speculation. Look, at the end of the day, Hollow Knight was a phenomenal game that easily earned the position of one of mine, and probably most of yous watching, favourite games of all time. And Team Cherry just want to make a game that can live up to the anticipation we've all placed on it. It's got big shoes to fill, so give the people making it their time, let them get it right. Yeah, it wouldn't be a good video talking about Silksong if I didn't give my worthless opinion on when I think the game will be released. I would say between Christmas time this year and March next year, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes another year or two. This is a very different video from what I normally make. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you like Hollow Knight, I've been 100%ing it on stream. If that's what you're into, you're welcome to stop by. That's it, have a good one.